going to begin our discussion of learning home networks. And the reason we're learning home networks is that they're a great point in which we can jump into and understand a business network, which is where we're going to ultimately work at. Let's take our learning goals. Understand the logical and physical components of a home network. We're going to also explain and understand the roles and function of each of those components. Configure and troubleshoot a home network. And remember, the goal is to really understand ultimately a business network. So what components are we going to look at? We're going to look at the ISP, the Internet Service Provider. We're going to look at the firewall. We're going to look at a router, the DHCP service, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, that provides IP address information to our home host devices. We're going to look at NAT service, Network Address Translation. We're going to look at the switch. We have a network switch. And we're going to look lastly at our wireless access point, or our WAP. We're going to also look at how we did after we do all the lecturing and then the labs that we're going to do. Hopefully by the end of this, you'll be a 3 or a 4. So stop and take a look at where you should be at the end of all of this training. These are the kinds of components that we typically see at home. What most people don't understand is the complexity involved. So we're going to break it down one by one and look at all the complex components that make a home network work. When people buy what they call a router and they bring it into their house and they have Bright House or Comcast or someone bring an internet connection, they understand how to connect it because manufacturers and ISPs have tried to make this relatively simple for the home user to do. But the technician needs to understand all the complexity that's involved. So we're going to break down, and this is a good place to pause and take a look and see how many components do you recognize that are typically found into what we call a home router. Our first logical component that we're going to deal is the ISP, the Internet Service Provider. Having an understanding of, most of you have something like Bright House, Comcast. In our area, we have CenturyLink, AT&T. Those are the major internet service providers. They provide strategic pieces in connecting our home network to the internet. What most people have at home are typically a DSL cable modem, a cable that connects to their home router, and all of that is what makes up their home network. Many ISPs, just to reduce complexity for the typical non-technical home user, are now bringing everything. They're bringing the cable modem or the DSL interface device. They're bringing voice over IP so they can have telephone service, and they're providing a wireless access point. All of that is in one device or maybe 2 devices, and really the ISP is providing everything. That really makes sense. They repair it, they maintain it, they do everything. Most home users struggle with this type of technology. ISP provides services. One of the most important service that ISPs provide are what we call the last mile. This is the physical cable that's brought from some strategic point in your local area or neighborhood and is brought to your home. Without this, you're not going to have internet connection. Another important component that they bring to you is DNS services. Very few people have a DNS server at home. They also provide DHCP services and routing services, and that's all part of the internet connection that they provide. They also provide an IP address that is usable on the internet. Generally, they'll provide you one IP address, but that IP address is usable on the internet. And that is why we're going to bring in network address translation so that you can give lots of IP addresses to your home devices, and they all are going to use one usable IP address. This technology is done under NAT. Physical connection that is brought in by the ISP is critical. That's the last mile. They're bringing fiber optics. They're bringing coax cable, and they're bringing an interface box into your home. So that's a very common way that cable companies are bringing the last mile to your home. If you're dealing with a telco, then they're bringing a telephone line with DSL signals, and again, another interface box so that you can access the internet, that last mile connection. It's becoming popular to bring fiber optics as another last mile technology. And that is very popular with customers and ISP. Brings tremendous bandwidth to the home. This is an example of a box that you would see on the outside of your home where they're bringing fiber optics into your house, and then an interface box that brings television, internet connection, etc. into your home. The interface boxes that all of these ISPs bring into your home are typically called modems. Well, technically they're not. Modems have long passed away. Thankfully, we don't have modems in our home anymore. Modems actually translated digital signals into audio signals, and we've long left modems. But they're really interface box. They convert proprietary electronic signals from your ISP or fiber signals from your ISP into Ethernet. Your home uses Ethernet. So you're either going to use 10 base or 100 base T. Some homes may have a gigabit. Another important piece of this interface box is it allows the ISP to remotely troubleshoot and determine, are there problems on their signal? Is there a problem within their system? Is it possibly your computers and your home equipment? They can also monitor what they're providing to you. So this becomes a huge piece for the ISP, allowing them to get a sense of what they're delivering to your home. So the ISP services that are so critical are an internet usable IP address, DNS services, and an internet connection or the last mile physical connection. So let's take a look at some of the IP information that's provided by your ISP. This is, I'm actually pulling up a Linksys router's web interface. This is actually the web interface into the firmware of a Linksys router. Very common. Most of you have seen something like this. This is actually the IP address that is being provided by my ISP for internet usage. I'm going to use NAT to allow all my home devices to have a private IP address, and we're all going to use that one IP to do our internet action. They provide a subnet mask. They also provide the next router. This is very important. My home router needs to see the next router, and that is going to be provided by the ISP. Your ISP is also providing you DNS services, which are critical for web surfing and accessing devices on the internet. We see 2 IP addresses, which shows that the ISP is providing us redundant DNS services. So our ISP is a major logical component in a home network. Without it, you will not get to the internet.